boy. When Lisa comes in, I want you to make a big fuss over how she looks.
She'll see through me like Grandma's underpants.
No, she won't. When it comes to compliments, women are ravenous, blood-sucking monsters, always wanting more. More! More! And if you give it to them, you'll get plenty back in return.
Like what?
I'll tell you when you're older. Is that Lisa? Oh, I gotta call heaven. There's an angel missing.
And who's your little school friend? Wait a minute. That's Mom!
Oh my goodness, how good.
Nice, thank you.
I know two fellows who are going to get a special dinner tonight.
Hey!
Woohoo! Dad, do you know anything else about women?
Nope, that's it.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends talking nerdy.
Yeah, I think the Wonder Woman thing did you see the movie Wonder Woman?
I didn't.
Oh.
How dare you?
I didn't. No, I don't watch. I haven't watched a lot of these superhero movies, but for a lot of those reasons, you know, like when they signed on, like we're gonna have Black Widow, I didn't feel like the character was treated well, and we're talking about like what were the action figures. Yeah. I was like, cool. In a small way, like I'm just gonna not dedicate my dollar. If my money is free speech, then my free speech is gonna go to like I want better representation. Yeah. So when you get really good representation, then you can have my money.
Yeah.
Until then, no.
You should give your money to Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. Because that movie did something that we haven't seen yet, which is completely what you're talking about, where it's like you have to be one or the other. If you want to be strong, you have to have these traits that are typically associated with men and not have a soft side to you.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about Wonder Woman was how she was a woman and then also was strong.
Yeah.
There were scenes where when she first goes into our world, into London, she sees a baby and she just was like, oh my God, baby! She just freaks out and she's like, it's so cute and beautiful. And then she's talking about, I need to go to the front line to like go, save this war. And then she has a scene where she sees an ice cream vendor for the first time and she gets an ice cream. She's like, this is the most wonderful thing. You should be so proud of yourself. And so she has these little moments of like just enjoying nice things and cute little babies. And then I won't spoil it for you.
But I will say, you put your money.
Yeah. but in the end, the sort of thing that is the thing that Wonder Woman derives her power from, a lot of people had a problem with this, but it was love. Okay. Yeah. And this is why.
No, I'm not to get down to it, but like, I can see people being like,
yeah, exactly. People are like, oh, it's so cheesy and cliche. A woman, is driven by love, but it's like, no, but like, that's okay to be driven by love. And that's not all that she is following. She's following, her sense of duty and what's right. And she's not, but a lot of her driving force is the care and the love that she has for humans. And what's wrong with that,
Okay.
And there was an interview with the director where the woman was talking about how, this thing could be kind of seen as something that is cliche, but at the same time, like, our world could use a little more love in it and a little more of being driven by love and care for other people.
Yeah.
And so when that happened to me, I was like, when I saw that, I was like in tears. It was just so beautiful. I'm like, this feels all of the things that I want to feel at this moment. I feel that wonderful like sense of fulfillment at the end. I wore my Xena costume to it, and I like was wearing the whole like breastplate, this like thing that's very not like actually good for fighting, and I can like barely breathe in it while I'm sitting there. And I was watching these scenes of her fighting, or of like seeing all these like 40 women on horseback on the beach, and I'm just like, this is what I've wanted to see since I was a child. Just the whole entire screen is just filled with women, these badass warrior ladies, and I was like hyperventilating and I couldn't even breathe, and I was just like ugly crying in my chair. And there were so many moments like that where I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't believe what I was seeing up there, because I was having those kind of out of body moments where I was like, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
Never seen this before on a big movie screen like this. And that would just really hit me. It really impacted me as something super special. And I felt so hopeful that like this, with the success of that there will be more things like that in the future, hopefully.
Yes, you can have my $1. I will see it.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I'm looking for out of my movies. And what I really am excited about, not having seen it, but still excited about, is like how successful it was, even among male audiences. And I think something that really got me is I'm not here fighting for this exclusion and like we need to see women, and we do.
Yeah.
But it's not just for female audiences. Like as a woman, I can definitely enjoy something that is male-centric. The story is driven by a man. I enjoy Doctor Who. I grew up on it, and that's great. And I'd love to see it flip the other way around too, because I don't think we're going to see the equality that we're looking for if we don't also give these great characters and stories for everyone to enjoy. And when I was at work, actually a couple weeks ago, I saw a little boy wearing a sparkly Wonder Woman shirt, and I was just like, oh my god, I love you. I want a picture. This is like, this is what I want. You know, like if I can go around wearing a Batman shirt and it's totally unquestioned, like I definitely want little boys to feel inspired by Wonder Woman and wear these awesome shirts too. And it doesn't have to be masculine, it can be glittery, just like I'm allowed to go the other way around as well. And that's kind of what I'm looking for out of the genre moving forward. And I think that's kind of what we're starting to see, and that's what makes me really hopeful in some respects, in those respects.
I dig it.
I think we're definitely still at a point of underrepresentation. There's a nonprofit locally here in Portland that distributes books to kids who might not otherwise have access to them. And one of the things is like their top wish list item is like, if you have any books with children of color, with, like young girls who are children of color, like anything, so that the kids often to whom we're distributing these books is that they can literally see themselves as a hero, or maybe not even as a hero, but just as a character. Like let's include them in a narrative, because like we all build our lives around narrative. Like we have a story of our past that we have told ourselves time and time again. We have a story of our future that we want to live. And if we, as we're learning about narrative and as we're learning about building story and the elements that lead to character development, because we are the heroes in our stories, we are the main character, and so if we don't understand how we develop ourselves and see ourselves through that progression, then how do we move from one point to the next? How do we move forward? And so I think that representation, like I think it is still valuable to have that fictional story that where you can relate, where you can see yourself. And you know, I want to believe in a world where it doesn't matter if it's male or female who you see yourself in. Like if there are qualities that you want to exemplify, if there is a goal that you want to achieve, if you see a human or who knows, not a human, doing that thing, then like you see yourself there and you get there. And I do think that unfortunately we are still at the point where it's like if you never see anyone who looks like you, who feels like you in stories, then it's really hard to visualize yourself as achieving those things. And so I think representation is important. Do I think that reality is more important? Absolutely. Yes. But do I think that we can get to reality without representation in story? No. I don't. Because like our understanding of humanity, and you can probably speak to this much better even than I can, there are stories. They're passed down in pictographs, are passed down in oral tradition, and those characters, those heroes, those gods, those whatevers are what guided people to make decisions, to move forward, to make discoveries. And so I think we need those stories and we need those characters that we can see ourselves in. But I do think like I'll go through my 6-month dystopian binge and I will see that everything is miserable and obviously we're all doomed, and then I'll watch Star Trek, or I will, read something that is some sort of science fiction where things aren't perfect, but there's some really cool stuff happening. There's a lot of potential, and I do think back on our history and like, oh man, it was bad. It was real bad, and it's still bad, and there's definitely imperfections, but there's improvement. And I think that we both have to cut ourselves a break and be unrelenting on ourselves, in that like we have made progress. We're not horrible, doomed to failure as the ideal that we want to see ourselves as, but also like we're not there yet, and we have to keep working towards it. And if we can't hold that paradox like in our minds, then we're not going to continue to make progress, because we have to see we did do good things, and there is the ability to continue to do good things, but also we're still doing bad things. And so like where we're at, I think there's got to be movement, but recognition. And I guess I feel like there is a lot of room for women in power, in honesty, in sci-fi and fantasy, almost more so than in literature and history, for me. And so I do look toward that more than reading a history book in a lot of ways, because a lot of it was written by the person who came out on top of that. And so I think that there's definitely there's room for us in the fiction, and I think it's a really cool space for us and for everyone potentially to explore. But I definitely think there needs to be more of women, of people of color, of aliens. Like that was one of the great things about Star Trek and other space fantasies. Like you get to kind of explore these aspects of the human race, because what else can we imagine in aliens, but from afar a little bit. It's still relatable. So
well, speaking of that advancement, I mean, you have movies like Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron, in action, which was really good to a point. I mean, I had problems with the movie overall, but with what steps do you think need to be taken for a proper representation of women in sci-fi, in action, in fantasy? What steps do you think needs to be taken?
Absolutely, like more women who are like writing and directing all of that stuff. Like, I think that's a product of like why Wonder Woman is so good and why Black Panther is so good, because you have women directors and producers and people working on the costumes, and so you're getting that perspective. Like if someone told me, okay, there's going to be, a Black Widow movie or like something, and it was going to be written by a man, I would kind of like side eye that, and I would say like, okay, well, we've had enough men writing these stories for women. I think it's about time we have women writing stories for women. It's all these things are, called correlating and connecting to each other. And like the reason why we are primarily talking about women, because we are women and we're talking about these things. So, having women being the people who are writing the stories and directing the stories, and just having that sort of chain there throughout the whole thing. And there are women, people always say, well, there's not as many women who are like directing and stuff. Like,
but that doesn't mean that there aren't women that are capable and trying.
They're trying to get there.
Actually, there are. They just don't get the chance to do the work.
Exactly. Like, they're there. They're not given the opportunity. They're not given the budgets.
There's one director I follow on Twitter, Lexi Alexander. She directed this indie movie, Green Street Hooligans, with Elijah Wood. But her claim to fame is that she directed Punisher, Warzone. One hell of a vicious action movie. And I love the fact that a woman directed it. But the problem came when the studio tried tried to make her change the vision, try to make it more into what they wanted.
Yeah.
She fought back, and then she started getting a lot of crap on her end.
Yeah.
And I mean, now her career thankfully is recovering because now she's been directing a lot of TV episodes, like a lot of the DC TV universe. She's directed some Supergirl and whatnot, but she still has trouble getting work in movies again, all because essentially she got the reputation of being the complaining woman, which is unfortunate because there is a lot of talent out there. Patty Jenkins won an Oscar for Monster, and yet what did you hear that she did between Monster and Wonder Woman?
Yeah.
You know, that's sad.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are really good, like, concrete examples of something like that. You know, it's not just like there literally are examples of it. It's not just like in our heads, kind of thing.
I'll let you. Yeah.
So I think, yes, like there are so many women out there who have so much talent, who have so many ideas, and I'd love to see more of that out there. And I met a woman recently who got her master's in gender studies, and she was talking about it. She was like, if you're going to go into gender studies, don't study women, study men.
Yeah.
And she said the reason for that was there's so much research on women, and there's so few people now talking about men.
Yeah.
And bringing them into the conversation and acknowledging, like, their struggle of, like, not being able to acknowledge emotion. And I think we're kind of at the point where we're like, yes, women, bring in women, and I still think that's great, but I think we're like, I want to see more women, but I don't want to, like, I don't want it to be such a, like, either or. Like, I want to be like, how can we,
I'm not trying to, like, tip
get there together. Like, well, like, I do want to, like, I mean, women are at least 50% of the population. I mean, they're underrepresented in India and China, which are the two most populous nations in the world. So, like, I'm not exactly sure right now in the population index, like, where women and men fall, but, like, we're about 50% of the population, and I would like to see it about representative. Yeah. But what I would also like to see is, like, instead of just women cheering this on, and I don't think it is just women, but those are the most common voices that we hear. Like, how do we bring people men into it? How do we cheer on women and, like, encourage that and not
make men feel alienated?
Like, not trying to help people.
Like, I don't hate men. I, like, a lot of my best friends are guys. And some of them are, like, super stereotypical dudes, and some of them have more feelings than I do. And like, I think that there is this, like, how do we focus on the human aspect? Like, we're all people. We all have the same feelings. They might be triggered by different things, but how can we embrace, like, I want to see strong women. I want to see vulnerable women. I want to see strong people and vulnerable people. And how can we make it okay to not just make strong women, but also just, like, embrace that full spectrum of humanity of men, women, different cultures. Like, I don't know. I don't know that I can separate, like, just how do we get to more women without being like, how do we get to more human connection.
I'm like, how can we get to more equality? That's really what it is, because we're talking about women and men, and, like, even between, like, so splitting this in half, you know, 50% of the population being men, 50% being women, like, even my experience is not the same as yours or yours, because there's other intersecting identities that come in, and I want to see those. It's not just a gender thing, because there are people that don't even associate with either, or maybe both, and that's great. I want to see that too. I want to see there's a lot of experiences out there that people have that are in part due to their gender and maybe due to other facets of their identity, and not maybe they are contributed and affected, and you feel them through other aspects of your identity. And so I want to see that. When you're talking about human, like, that's what I see. I see it kind of, like, all-encompassing. It doesn't have to be that this is tailored to me because I'm a woman. This can be to me as a human, and, like, I've seen this, or I've experienced this, or I want to. It's where stick. I want to understand this. And that's where I really appreciate what you're saying, and that's kind of what comes to mind, is it's not just both, and we need to include both. When you're talking about women and gender studies, where are men in that conversation? Because there's still a lot that happens to men that we push under the table. Women are allotted emotion and men aren't. And because that's what we value emotionalist men, and we undervalue emotional women. Well, can we bring people in together? Because I feel anger, you feel anger, sadness, fatigue, all of it. We all do, and I appreciate that. Like, can we see that as being a human quality and not associated with gender? That's something that, like, that's my ideal. If we're talking about, like, man, where do I want to go? And that's where I want to go. How are we going to get there? I don't think I have an answer for you. Something that I will kind of say to kind of touch on what you were talking about is having women direct these movies and write these parts. And I agree, because I think part of what might get us there is let's allow people to choose the ideal, right? So, like, why is a man telling me what the ideal woman is? Why can't another woman show me that in a film? Yeah. And it across the board, again, not just gender, but as well with, like, religion. So you're talking about, like, most populous countries of China and India, and we're seeing movies starring, like, they're chick flicks, right? So they're, like, starring women, and they're Indian women, and they're not allowed to show these films in the country because they talk about sex before marriage, they talk about birth control and things like that. And not to say that, like, those conversations are more ideal because it's the Western ideal, but it's also kind of just understanding as well that those experiences are different for them, not just as women, but within that culture as well. And so I'd like to see those stories told by those people. I'd like to allow people to share themselves and give that kind of vulnerability so I can see that as well. So that's kind of where I was coming in with yours too. Something that also came to mind was Star Wars, like, having John Boyega, like, his character I felt was not the stereotype. And I was like, man, I'm frustrated because this person's trying to back out, but I'm also really excited because otherwise, that probably would not have been the story, if we hadn't gotten as far as we have. And so I see a lot of men had like problems with him being cowardly. And so, but that was something like, he was a real person in his behaviors. And so I think that's what I want to kind of add to that conversation of, like, how can we see more women, how can we have more even sort of representation in the stories and who we're seeing participate in these stories, is to make these efforts to have characters like that. And then so having people write characters that are, like, not typical. And then also us who say that we want to see this stuff, go see that stuff in theaters, I feel bad because I never saw Atomic Blonde in theater. Granted, I was, like, out, like, in another country, but, like, I remember getting so excited for that. I was like, look at her kicking butt, and she's gay, and I want to see this, and all, and then I never saw it in theater. I never got to actually give my money to contributing to this, and so I feel responsible, and so, and then I was like, there was this other movie that was just coming out with those two women that was, like, my, like, ex-boyfriend spy or something like that. Spy Who Dumped Me or something. And so I put that in my calendar for the day that it came out because I was like, I have to see this. I have to see it because I laughed when I saw the trailer. It looks like a great story with these two women doing, like, an action movie, and it's a comedy. But they're totally normal women. Yeah, but they're totally normal women, and I just thought, like, these movies, like, don't typically do well. And so if I want to see more stuff like this, I need to go put my money where my mouth is and, like, make sure I go and see it. And so those are sort of, like, conscious efforts that even, like, us consumers can make a difference with, how we're talking about it on social media, and then who we're actually giving our money to. It's going to influence those things. I think. It's definitely a way of, like, how we're going to get there. We are a consumerist nation, and that's fine, and that's why our money speaks so loudly. And so if we want to see more female directors, or we saw the storyline that we felt was really impactful and we felt was inclusive, give your money. That's how you're going to, if studios see that it's profitable, that they're going to continue that norm. And if we see these more inclusive, encompassing, challenging stories, and we give our money, then we're going to see more and more and more of them. And then it's so cyclical because we have our culture influencing our media and our media influencing our culture. And that's one way without having to do something like this that you can influence and change those things. And so I think it's really powerful to, put it in your calendar, go see it, talk about it, promote it, bring your friends. That's definitely a way. Word of mouth. Like, that is, like, the most efficient form of, like, getting the word out there, word of mouth. Tell your friends about it. Yeah, definitely. Agreed. Like this podcast. Anything else do you want to wrap up with, or?
I have a question for Tim. When was the first time you saw yourself in a female character?
Oh, I love it.
Ooh.
Sorry, I just put you on the spot. You didn't expect it, and I'm going to do it anyways.
Gosh, let me think.
Captain Janeway.
Sterling's doing backflips now. Woman I looked up to, woman I was able to relate to, is on a picture underwater bottle, Princess Leia.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Carrie Fisher in that role, even though it was a stereotypical damsel in distress type of role, was able to go beyond that and make it more real because, you know, believe it or not, women can be in positions where they are in distress and that's okay, you know, as long as they're rescued, blah, 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 but she was still strong and, you know, her in The Empire Strikes Back, her relationship with Han Solo was great to see. I'm also glad that they didn't go overboard with showy versions of romance. One problem I have with movies, even today, is that they want to show people in love by having them both get naked. And I don't have a problem with people getting naked, but, you know, it's lazy storytelling. Right. You can do that. I mean, because the Han Solo and Princess Leia doing that brief kiss on Cloud City, to me, was more romantic than anything else, than anything I've ever seen in movies. You know, it was just a simple boom kiss done. You know, so characters like that, you know, even though I had problems with the movie, Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde was great to see. You know, because I didn't get, because some problems I have with some action movies starring women, like Mila Jovovich in the Resident Evil movies. She's great, but it's sometimes those roles like that are it doesn't matter if it's a woman or not, if you get my drift. So it you know, kind of like with Sigourney Weaver in the Aliens movies as well. I love her as an actress and I love those movies, but I just didn't. You know, I think a guy would react in the same way, whereas, you know, Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde was reacting the way a woman would, and I appreciated that. And also, her work in Monster with Patty Jenkins, my God, that was an amazing performance.
I think that I would use a little different, like, terminology. I wouldn't say, like, she's reacting like a woman would. I would say more like she couldn't be so... She
reacted like a human.
Yeah, she reacted like her... reacted like a human. I think, you know, bringing up the Aliens movie too, like, you know, if something's that interchangeable like that, where you can just go, they're literally just putting a type masculine personality onto this woman, that's, you know, that's when it's not good. And, you know, with in Atomic Blonde, even though I haven't seen it, I imagine that she is just multifaceted a person. She's got different types of emotions, and like she's fierce, but maybe she's also soft, and maybe she has emotions, and then also she's really tough. So you know, I think it's more of like she's got these well-rounded things that are both like what we typically call masculine and feminine together. She's just all of, you know, all of those things instead of just like, you know, reacting like a woman would.
Much better said than I did.
I have fun about it.
You know, it's good. It's like I get what you're doing.
Words sometimes.
But that's the thing that we want to kind of like change, is like just that, a little bit of that, like how do we talk about this, how do we find the, you know, the words that we are choosing to say with each other. Even right now we're really trying to say like typical masculine feminine traits, or like something, we're trying to say these, we're trying to like acknowledge that these terms have been used to describe these certain things, and we want to kind of get away from that and it's not representative of everybody kind of things. And so just little subtle changes like that too, I think, are important to making these bigger changes that we want to change.
It changes made in steps, leaps, not bounds. So, it's a small thing, small changes, and see the positive, great, and then build on that and continue on.
And granted, you know, it's not easy to do it. You know, I've had like my mother and these different people who are like, well, why, you know, we've all been saying these same things all the time, you know, why do I have to change this? Like, it's so hard. And I'm like, you know, it is, but it's like, it's worth it. Even like when we've had this discussion, I'm like trying very hard to like be particular about the vocabulary that I'm using and like how I'm saying saying it, but it's an effort that is worth putting effort towards because the possible results of something like this could have ripple effects, and making these little bit of changes. Eventually, that way we used to talk will be totally gone, and we won't talk like that anymore. And then we'll have made some actual progress. So it's worth to be slightly like, how do I say this for a second while we're figuring it out to talk about it in a better way,
or allow a correction if someone's like, hey, you said this is what I took it as. What if we considered it from this perspective, this language, and so on? Conversation. It's not like right and wrong. It's like, can we have a conversation around it? And I definitely appreciate that.
I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but that's what it is, you're like, it's a discussion. Like you said, not trying to make anybody feel bad or be like, oh man, I can't talk to you now you said that. It's not going to be that. It's not that way because we are constructive. It's not constructive. We're trying to transition. We're trying to be better. We know, you have a good place in your head where you want to be kind of thing. And so good intentions are there. It's just, we all have to educate each other.
Perfect,
exactly. We're not all perfect. We all still have things that, we do that aren't the greatest. So we have to help each other out.
I like it's the opportunity to bring people along. If you say something and maybe it wasn't what you meant, someone not corrects you but makes you aware. It's like, okay, great. I feel like you care enough to bring me along and bring in my development. And no, I'm not perfect, and no, I didn't consider it from that perspective. And wow, now I get to. And you just added to me as a human being. And so now I want to find someone in sci-fi and fantasy who's as complex and has faults and is allowed to have these faults. And that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for humanity.
Yeah, there was a political cartoon I saw. It was a cartoon of two eagles, and one of them was talking about the plight of mice. And they were talking about it in such a way that, I've never experienced that, so I don't know what they're talking about. And too often, people in general do get trapped into the mindset of, I've not experienced it, so how could it be happening? I think back to when Black Lives Matter first started becoming a big thing. And I was in Sacramento at the time, and when they first started doing protestings down there, my initial reaction was annoyance until I sat back and thought about it. In the 50s and 60s, I don't think people were necessarily celebrating the fact that, you had Rosa Parks sitting in the front of the bus or, the sit-ins at diners. It's not the celebrated good cheer that you hear about in history in school.
And that's not even how it was then. So we've switched and we see the good, and people sat back and listened and understood that that was the right thing. We needed that. That was good. That brought positive change. But that wasn't the reaction then. And it's a hard thing.
It took change. It took people seeing it. I think the power of, in the 50s and 60s, seeing news footage of people getting, taken down with, water hoses or dogs, or today seeing, the most powerful weapon people have in their hands are their phones. If they see something going bad, flip out that camera, record it, and it's a whole different world at that point. And I think people in general, I know I've been guilty of it in the past, I'm sure I'll be guilty of it in the future, and it will always be a constant struggle, but it's trying to see a situation from someone else's point of view.
Because you live in your own body. You really have to challenge yourself to see it from any other way outside of your experience. And I think that's a challenge that maybe we should be more diligent about taking on day to day. I think that's going to help create some change, if you're willing to see it from another perspective, if you're willing to be wrong, if you're challenging yourself to see it, I'm not hungry, so world hunger must not exist. You don't think like that. Because just because you're good doesn't mean everyone else is. And, getting outside of yourself and understanding that, you don't know everything and your experience isn't the end-all be-all, it's a good way to see the changes that we're talking about and that we're striving for and looking at.
And just improving, relations in general amongst, humans with each other. That's just, those sort of fundamental things will allow for people to, if you allow that into your heart, then you're going to allow, the understanding of why it's important to be telling these stories of all people and not just, a certain group of people. And understanding why, I think I've heard so many family members say, why do people care about, having themselves on TV, or seeing, a person of color on TV or a woman on TV or something, okay, this is like going to be a 20-minute discussion here, but that's just something that, or more, but just understanding that, but that, the start of understanding that is taking yourself out of yourself for a moment to consider the point of view and the lives of others. And those sort of, that I think will go all into that question of like, how can we make these things change? How can we make these changes? So it's a systematic, it's a full systematic thing. It's going to have to be a holistic approach. There's lots of little like things that need to be dealt with and be chipped away at from all over the place. It's a cultural thing. It's our entire society. So it's not going to be something.
You can't leave any things out. You got to take the good with the bad and keep moving forward to figure it out. My favorite quip when people ask me things like that, if I really don't feel like I'm not sure you're asking me to instruct, I'm always just like, okay, well, I'm going to go and read how people responded when they announced having a female Doctor Who. If you don't think representation matters, then why are these people so upset? And I'm going to let you do the homework. And that's definitely like my favorite way to go about it.
Just kind of flipping it around and showing like
okay, now can you understand and put it from their perspective? Because sometimes it's a little bit harder to bring people together to your side. It's kind of like, wait, hold on, let me just flip your perspective just a little bit and try seeing it from here. Okay, now let's go the whole way around. Let's do a 180. Okay, great, we got there.
You get them there.
We're gonna get there. Baby steps.
Baby steps, and then by the time it's like leading someone through therapy. It's just like, let's start here.
You're like, okay, we got this to deal with.
Let's not talk about that big thing right now. So tell me about your childhood. Kind of like work
tell me about your mother.
To that point, and you're like, oh my god, there's that answer that was there the whole time, but you did have to take those small steps to get to that point, and then ultimately it will stick better if you are doing that, and you're not just shoving the answer in someone's face. Hey.
Someone's really happy about the show.
Hopefully it's celebratory.
And that's the end of the podcast.
And let's go make sure it's okay.
We got to clean up now.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I've loved the conversation. This is the beauty of what this podcast has been for me, because there are plenty of podcasts with, two white guys like me and Sterling talking all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I love hearing different voices. So thank you all for being on this show, and be on again. Don't let this be your only spot.
It's fun.
Really fun. Anyway, thank you all for listening. Anything y'all want to say before we go?
I wanted to give parting recommendations. I mean, if you like what we were talking about, and we're talking about representation, I have 3 authors that I would really like to put out there: Bell Hooks, Toni Morrison, and Octavia Butler. If you like what we were talking about and you want to see it, experience, and you want different perspectives, could not recommend their work any higher than I do. So check them out.
In comics, read Miss Marvel from Marvel Comics, written by a Seattle resident, G. Willow Wilson, about a 15-year-old Pakistani American girl by the name of Kamala Khan. Brilliant story. Definitely recommend it. Anything you all recommend?
Go rewatch Xena. It's on. I think it's on Hulu right now. I used to be on Netflix, but it's on Hulu. But I mean, every episode is great. You'll get some childhood nostalgia, and then you can kind of see these foundational sort of like fantasy, sci-fi, strong women things being set into place with it. And watching and Wonder Woman. Go watch Wonder Woman.
Oh, and Ash versus the Evil Dead.
Oh
Lucy Wallace is in it, but there are plenty of other women in the show. Brilliant show. Produced by the same people who did Xena, of course.
That whole crew. But Xena.
What about you, Meredith?
Star Trek, The X-Files, anything by Tamara Pierce. She does a really great job of representing women as humans and men as humans, and growing up. So if you're, I'd say 8 to any age, give it a go.
All right. With that, we thank you all for listening, and tune in again next week.
Bye.
And with that, another episode of Friends Talking Nerdies into Books. We thank you all for listening once again. This is Tim Jousma. Tune in again next week as Noel, myself, and the wonderful singer-songwriter who created our theme song, Christopher Lazarek, will be here to discuss some of our top 20 favorite music videos from the 80s and 90s. We hope y'all will join us next week. Now, though, got a little bit of business to discuss here. Someone you just heard on the past 3 episodes, and also who is a wonderful addition to the show when we talked about Star Trek, is Meredith Firetag. As you may have surmised over listening to multiple episodes of this show, primarily most of us involved in the show do live in the Portland area. Noel, of course, is based out of New York City. Maura is as well. Maura's currently taking a sabbaticals to train to become the next UFC women's champion. Anyway, Meredith is a Portland resident, used to work now at our mutual place of employment. We do joke around, of course, that, we work at a strip club and whatnot. That is purely for joking's sake. I mean, if you saw me, you would know that's a joke. Anyway, so Meredith is moving to Kentucky. And I just wanted to take a moment myself to thank her for involvement on the show. Unfortunately, I can't say I know her that well, but when you do work with somebody in the trenches, you do tend to get a good judge of their character and what type of person they are. And Meredith is, and always has been, one of the nicest, most down-to-earth people you will ever know. And also a big Star Trek fan. Damn, I mean, I thought I was into that show until I met her. Apparently she's fluent in Klingon and whatnot. But when I first started this show up and discovered that she did have an interest in Star Trek, she was someone I was keen to get on the show, and it definitely helped this show in spades. And to the point that her mother, Ruth, is actually one of our top Patreon supporters. So thank you, Ruth Firetag, for not only your financial support but in helping to raise a wonderful daughter. Now, because Meredith has been such a positive impact on the show, I did want to do a little bit of a surprise for her. So I was able to talk to a couple of people that were gracious enough to say a few words. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to someone else that you heard on the past 3 episodes, Asia Beecraft, so she can have a little bit to say. So it's off to you, Asia.
Hey guys, this is Asia here. I just wanted to take a moment to record this and give Meredith a proper send-off as she leaves Portland and the podcast in person and moves on to her next big adventure. And so I just wanted to take a moment, recognize what an amazing woman she is and how much I am deeply going to miss her, and show a little love. So Meredith, I'm saying this directly to you. I love you. I'm going to miss you, but you'll always be my mama goose. And to everyone else who's wondering what in the world that means, Meredith and I actually first met when she was training me for the job that I have now, and she really took me under her wing and was just kind of amazing and took on this mentor capacity for me, which she does for everyone. And she's just that calm, thoughtful, compassionate, intelligent person all day, every day. That is no act. That is 100% her. And I am going to miss having that in my life every day. I'm going to miss seeing that on the show all the time. And yeah, I just wanted to recognize her and say that we're going to miss you, Meredith, and we love you. And I'm super duper excited for you. But I'm still reasonably sad. Very, very, very sad. But that's okay. But yeah. Bye, Meredith. Good luck. Come back. Text me.
And thank you for that, Asia. Like I said, I got more than one person, so I do have somebody else that wanted to say a few words to Meredith as well. So, knowing how word goes around, I mean, Meredith probably already knows that this person said it, but I was hoping it was a surprise, and if it is a surprise, here it is. Here's that special message.
All right. This is Meredith's goodbye celebration. We love you. / Portland's going to miss you. But more seriously, this is Anissa. Mama Ruth, I'm giving you a shout out. Meredith is one of my favorite people in the world. She also is the whitest person I know. She speaks and understands Klingon. Klingon? What is that? Oh my God, I'm sorry to all you Trekkies out there.
Klingon.
Klingon.
A race.
Yes.
Trek, yeah.
Yes. I know they do live long and prosperous, right? Is that them?
That's the Vulcan.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is why I needed Meredith in my life, and I'm really sad to see her go. She corrects me on all of this. She is really proud of the fact that she won Star Trek trivia. Again, nerd alert. Also, whitest person in America. There's this great story about Meredith where she learned the word ratchet from NPR and then bragged about it. So there's a lot of reasons why I love you, Mary, and I'm going to miss you so much. I can't wait to come kick it with you in Kentucky and wear bow ties and go to the Kentucky Derby and drink bourbon, even though my stomach is very weak.
Kentucky bourbon, though, is better than Tennessee bourbon.
Even better. And who knows anything about Tennessee? I barely know anything about Kentucky, so I'm excited that it's that place, not Tennessee.
Yep.
All right, Meredith, good luck from your friends at...
Friends Talking Nerdy.
Friends Talking Nerdy, even better.
All right, thank you for that, Anissa. In closing, Meredith, if you are listening, and I hope you are, I hope you're also telling other people about it. Anyway, if you are listening, I do appreciate the time you took to be on the show. The Star Trek episode you did with Noel and I, the fact that I think we got like 2.5 hours of talking about Star Trek, and I think we could have gone on a lot more than what we did was kick-ass. And also the exceptional work that you, Shelby, and Asia did on the past 3 episodes here on women in pop culture. It really, I think I mentioned it last week, but I'll say it again here. The work you 3 did helped really kind of showcase what I've always wanted to do with this show, and that's just let a bunch of voices talk about nerdy stuff, because too often you see in like social media and whatnot, people are getting upset over the silliest things when it comes to pop culture, when at the end of the day, movies, television shows, books, stuff like that, comic books, they're meant to unite us. They're meant to make us closer together. So the fact that you played such an integral role on 2 important episodes on our show, I definitely thank you for the time you put in, and honestly, don't be a stranger. Thanks to all the technology we have today and little things like Skype, you can still very much be a part of this show. So we will continue to keep in touch here. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being who you are. And with that, we will see you next week.
Come in.
Am I too late?
Of course not. Pull up a chair.
What's the game?
5-card draw, deuce is wild. Come in. Is there a problem, sir?
No. I just thought that I might join you this evening. If there's room.
Of course. Have a seat.
Would you care to deal, sir? Oh, thank you, Mr. Data. Actually, I used to be quite a card player in my youth, you know. I should have done this a long time ago.
You were always welcome.
So, 5-card stud, nothing wild. And the sky's the limit.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.